Okay, so in the bottom of Vav Amud Beis, a couple of lines from the bottom, and the Gemara had talked about Shtayim Kol Chasna L'Shlish Zafilu Tefach, that you can have two perpendicular walls and an extra tefach. And the Gemara brought down yesterday that Shimon argues you also have to have three in a tefach. We pass like to Rabbanan, so that the Gemara is going to continue with two in a tefach. So the Gemara asks three lines from the bottom. Those are tefach chechem amido. Where do you put that extra tefach? You put it by the edge of one of those two walls. I would have liked to have pictures. We'll have some pictures from Rashi and Gemara, printed Gemara. I would have liked to make better ones, but not better ones that would be more understandable. But I wasn't able to, so I hope that it'll go smoothly. So Keneged Yotze would mean if you have two perpendicular walls, so you put it by the edge of one of those two walls. We'll see the picture in a second. Amalei Rav Kana, Rav Asi, the Rav Yamidenu. Oh, we do. I wasn't conscious of it here. Where did it go to? What happened to the Rashi? I don't see 1 second. I'm sorry that I'm not.
Excuse me. Are we still on Zayin Amud Beit, or are we on Zayin Amud Al? Are we on Vav Amud Beis?
I'm not familiar with this Gemara to see where they're. Here it is. Okay, there's the bill over there. Okay, these are the two pictures that Rashi shows us. That if you have two perpendicular walls, you put the tefach by one of the two, either one, no difference. Okay, the Gemara continues. Bottom line, only Rav Kana, Rav Asi, the Rav Yamidenu. Keneged Rosh Tor. Why not put it diagonally? So the Rashi that here, the picture obviously is not proportionate because these walls should be 7 by 7, and this one is only a tefach, so it's not just a proportionate picture. But make it a diagonal out of it in a way that it looks more like it's closed in. If you just have it as we saw before, so then it's just straight, so you don't see that it's closing in the whole thing. But put it diagonal that it should be closing in. Others make it a different picture in Rashi. That the printer put this picture. Some understand Rashi differently, and this should be in the middle over here, not by the edge, but it should be coming down more. Not the whole thing should be coming down. Not that it's bigger than a tefach, the same tefach. Just move it over. Take this whole thing and move it to the middle, and you'll have space on either side that also closes it off more. So you'll have 7. Not because of love, not because of love, not because to do with love, but just put it the opposite. Yeah, it looks more close. You'll have the two 7 by 7 and put opposite the corner, but there should be a tefach over there. The modern pictures, the contemporary pictures, they put it over here. They put it opposite the outline. You have the 7 by 7, so put it as if you would draw the line and put it over there. But I think there are many proofs against that shot. We're not going to pass like it anyway, so we don't have to spend too much time. But someone understood that the Gemara's Rosh Torah would put to make over here a the diagonal. But the Pashas Rashi says either means by the edge or it means in the middle. But it's still a triangle. A Rosh Torah means a triangle.
It's more closed in.
It looks more closed in. The place inside is more closed in. If you just have the tefach at the end, it doesn't look so closed in.
That you don't have to.
That was he was saying. Okay, Shasik Rav didn't answer. So why didn't he answer? Either because he agreed or he didn't agree. Not clear. Rav didn't answer. So far the popular opinion is like Rav said so, and Shmuel said in the name of Levi the same thing. You put it as we saw earlier. You just put it by one of the two walls, not on an angle, not diagonal, and also that's how they pass in the Beis Medrash. Put it by one of the two walls. The first picture that we saw in Rashi, that you put it by one of the two edges. But we're not going to pass like that, even though the Gemara says that's the passing in the Beis Medrash. But the Gemara continues one more line. Rab Simon v'Tema Rabbi Shmuel Levi Amar Oslo Tefach Sochik Umamidu Pepachas Mishlosha Tvachim Samach Ladofen V'Chapachas Mishlosha Samach Ladofen Kalav Dami. So I think there's a picture over here. If we get it outside. That's he wants to do like this. He wants that he should make not a tefach plus, tefach plus a mashu, and put it within 3 tvachim. So again, the picture is not proportionate because this is supposed to be 1 and a mashu, and this space is supposed to be a mashu less than 3. So the picture is not proportionate, but just use your imagination. So then it'll be lavud. This part is going to be considered closed off because less than 3 tvachim, plus the 1 and a mashu altogether it's 4. So 4 is most of what the sukkah is supposed to be. The sukkah is supposed to be 7 by 7, and you have 2 good walls 7 by 7, and the third one is going to be altogether 4. 1 plus within 3 is going to be altogether 4, and that's good enough. And that's what he meant to say. So that's coming to explain when we said 2 and a tefach, it means 2 and this. 2 and a tefach plus a mashu, which is going to be within 3 tvachim, and that's going to be the good wall. And that's how we pass that if you have these 2 perpendicular walls, that the third wall should be in such a setup in a way that you have love, but then it'll have 4 tvachim. We're going to see more Gemara. You might have to have something else also. So that's what the Gemara says. Okay, that was the first Gemara, and that was by 2 perpendicular walls. The next Gemara talks about if you have 2 parallel walls. I'm going to view the sukkah kemovi, next sukkah. Sukkah kemovi. So that's here. We'll have slide pictures. This is the case of the sukkah kemovi, 2 parallel walls. So we said you have 2 walls and a mashu. How about over here? Till now we had 2 walls that are perpendicular. And now we have 2 walls that are parallel. What's the halach over here? So he says also it's kasha. And now the Gemara is going to say, where do you put the tefach? And the Gemara is going to, we'll see soon what the Gemara says. Okay. So that's the Gemara over here. I'm going to view the sukkah a sukkah that has 2 parallel walls is kosher. So he seems to go with the opinion of Rav in the beginning of the Gemara that you put the extra tefach by any one of the possibilities. I'm sorry, jumping around back here, but let's say over here, he would say that you could put it by any one of the 4 possibilities, either over here a tefach, or over here a tefach, or over here, or over here. And he doesn't hold the whole business about making a tefach plus within lavud and making it into a 4 tefachim. Just put a tefach and put it by any one of the 4 possibilities. But now the Gemara is going to say also that's not good enough. You have to more than that. Rab Simon, Viteme B'Shuban Levi Yamar, also lo pasar bo mashu mamida b'pachas b'shlosh samach l'dofen b'chol pachas b'shlosh samach l'dofen k'lavadam. He also wants again to do lavud, but here he's getting more. He's going to say that again it's not proportionate. What do they do? It's not proportionate. This wall is 7 tefachim at least, and this is 7 tefachim, and this is very far away. It looks very close. This is a board which is 4 tefachim plus a mashu, and it's within 3 tefachim, and altogether you have 7. And even if the wall is very far away, it could be many amos away. It could be 3 amos away, 4 amos, 5 amos away. If you have 2 parallel walls, here you make 4 plus within 3. Altogether it's 7. And then you have like a 7. You have a 7 tefachim wall. What the Lord is considered a 7 tefachim wall, and that will be good enough. And there was an asakasha. How come before you said that 1 tefach within 3 is good, and you have rov dofen, it's considered 4 tefachim is good enough. Here you have to have 4 plus within 3, and altogether you have a 7 tefachim. Why being machmir over here? And the Gemara is going to answer because perpendicular walls are better than parallel walls. The Gemara says, how come by perpendicular walls it says enough to have a mashu more than a tefach within 3 tefachim, and altogether it's 4 tefachim, and that's good enough. And here you have to have a board which is 4 tefachim plus, and within 3 tefachim, and altogether it's 7. How can you be machmir over here? Over there that Rashi says means, and they're perpendicular, they're kimin gam, and they're close to each other. That's more of a closing in on the 2 walls. So then it's not that the third wall should be a tefach. Solchek means the extra tefach within 3 tefachim, and it's going to be 4 tefachim altogether. Here, that the 2 walls are separated, you have 2 walls, but they're not together. So then you have to have, it should be fixed up with a 4 tefachim board that's within 3 tefachim, and you have altogether 7. So we have 2 Gemaras. One is by perpendicular walls, one is parallel walls. And so far the Gemara said that by the perpendicular walls, you have to have a tefach plus, a little bit more than a tefach board that's going to be within 3 tefachim to make altogether 4 tefachim. And that's good enough, even though the sukkah extends 7 by 7. But that 2 perpendicular walls 7 by 7, and 1 which is going to be altogether 4. And the next Gemara says if you have 2 parallel walls, so then you have to have a board which is 4 tefachim plus within 3 tefachim. That should be love, but altogether you have 7 tefachim, and then that's good enough. Even though the 2 walls are very far apart from each other, it's good enough. Those are the 2 Gemaras. Amar Rava. So this Gemara now is surely going on the first case. It's surely going in the case of the perpendicular walls. Maybe it's also going on the parallel walls also. Omer Rava, ve'ena niteres elo b'tzuras haPesach. Igad Amri Omer Rava, niteres nami b'tzuras haPesach. Igad Amri Omer Rava, tzrich nami b'tzuras haPesach. So there are three versions of what Rava said. Rava says something about a tzuras haPesach. Tzuras haPesach, we know it means a door frame, which means two doorposts and a lintel. Everyone knows that's the tzuras haPesach, how they make an area always. Nowadays, they just use some kind of fishing string on top in order to make the lintel, whatever you use a mashu. But you have to have two doorposts, two mezuzot, and a lechi they call it, and then a korah on top. So he says here something, there are three versions. One is that you have to have a tzuras haPesach. One is you can have either or. And the third version is you have to have both. So what is it talking about? So let's take the first case. Rashi, I'll say Rashi, and then we'll say that Rashi is not so simple. We're not going to pass like this anyway, the first version, but there's a question what the first version is. Rashi says that till now we said that you have to have two walls and a tefach. Let's say two perpendicular walls and a tefach. Make it into a tzuras haPesach. And Rashi explains that means, not like we said till now, that you move it away to less than 3 tefachim, whatever, or you put it right next to the wall, as the Gemara first said, but take this tefach and divide it in half. You have two half tefachim. Make a tzuras haPesach that has two lachis. Usually a lachi doesn't have any width. There's no halacha how wide the lachi has to be. But over here you have to have a lachi which is a half tefach wide. And make that the third wall should be a tzuras haPesach. So according to this new pshat, what we said so far, if you have two perpendicular walls, forget about the tefach we saw, forget about the lovud, all that, forget about that. Take the lechi, divide it into half, down the length, and take the board, which is a tefach wide, and make two half tefachim out of it. And those are going to be the two sides, the two lechis that the korah is going across. Lupshat. It's pretty difficult, Rashi, and others learn differently. Others learn very simple, and Rav just like to say the simple pshat. Rabbeinu Hanan, the Rif, they learned that Rav is saying, don't do the tefach. Forget about the tefach. Just do a tzuras haPesach. That means if you have two perpendicular walls, on the third wall, make a tzuras haPesach. It fits much easier into the Gemara. And he's saying that even the Kashi is, how could he argue on the Brisa? The Brisa said, make a tefach. He's saying, forget about the tefach. So they say maybe it means with Rabbanan. He's saying, don't rely on that. With Rabbanan, better to make a tzuras haPesach. So that's the first version in Rava. Make it easier. Not like Rashi. Just the first. We're not going to pass like it anyway, either way. But Rava says, make a tzuras haPesach. What does that mean? You have two perpendicular walls. Make a tzuras haPesach on the third wall. The probably as big as a 7 tefachim, whatever it might be, maybe 4 tefachim, but make a tzuras haPesach. I would say 7 tefachim, make a tzuras haPesach. The other ones, ikadamri, some say, I agree to what you said about a tefach. I agree. Whatever you said is good. But there's also another possibility, make a tzuras haPesach also. Means whatever we said, let's say we said, Shul ben Levi said, if you have two perpendicular walls, so make a tefach plus and put it within 3 tefachim, and you'll have lavud. So that's good. If you want to, you also can make a tzuras haPesach. Either or. He's just coming to add on. He's not coming to argue. He's not coming to be machmir. He's coming to say you don't have to have dafka tefach. If you want to, you also can do a tzuras haPesach. Igildami, the third version, you have to have both. That means whatever we said about having a tefach, do that plus make a tzuras haPesach also. So tzuras haPesach, as Pashas is going to mean from there till the end. That if you had, let's say, two perpendicular walls, so make a distance of less than 3 tefachim, put a board which is a tefach and plus, and then from there till the end also make a tzuras haPesach. Okay, and that's how we're going to pass him. So we pass like Rava. It's not. Okay, this we're going to highlight. We pass like the third version of Rava, that when you have two perpendicular walls and you're making a tefach sochek with the 3 tefachim, 4 tefachim altogether, so also make a tzuras haPesach from there till the extension.
Tzuras haPesach without this tefach wouldn't help.
That's what it sounds like. Nice point. That it sounds like tzuras haPesach is not going to be good enough for this third wall alone. That's what it sounds like. We only have to have both. It's not enough to have either wall. You have to have both. Some also learned this. Some will learn that this Gemara is not only going in the first Gemara of the perpendicular walls, it's going on the parallel walls also. And also you might need a tzuras haPesach. So if you have the two parallel walls and you put a board of 4 tefachim within 3 tefachim, so you got the 7 tefachim, you also have to have a tzuras haPesach from there till the other parallel wall, and some hold like that also. It says the Rambam, and it says good to be machmir on that. This Gemara is going on both Gemaras before.
What is the tzuras haPesach? It's like a
Tzuras haPesach is 2 lachayim with a thing on top, like you see always when
so
they
you
make
a kind of
a door frame.
It's upright.
Two-
Pictures
two-
yet show you lying down chet.
Which picture are you looking at?
I don't know. I got this picture here. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, I think nobody knows what the last picture is.
Okay.
if anything, I think if anything, the last picture I'll show it on the screen. I think that it. They made it nicer over here. Very nice. Oh, you see what they did? They made in the old picture that mean to show that's very nice. I didn't see that they had this in the new contemporary Gemaras. And the way they printed in the old Gemaras, they didn't make you can't tell they mean to say that it's upright. It looks like it's lying down.
Right.
If you look in the old Gemaras, anybody has the old Gemara. This is very nice. Right, it's like a maze. They made this flat down like this. Okay, so very nice. They did a good job. So they mean to say that make it towards the pesach. So what do? So you have the two perpendicular walls and move away less than 3 tefachim and put a and this should be a tefach probably. It should be a tefach. Interesting because you are doing a tefach also. This should be a tefach in this direction. I don't think they meant to do that. And then make it towards the pesach. And the other one could be a mashu. This one doesn't have to be a tefach. This could be a mashu. This lachi, but this lachi should be a tefach and a mashu. In order that it should be 4 tefachim of a wall. And then for the rest of it, make that it should be a source of Pesach. Okay, that's how I'm asking. Some say also, by the case of the parallel wall, also that even though you have a pas dalet, again, these two walls should be very separated. It's not proportionate the way they made the picture. So you have these two parallel walls, then you put a board which is plus within 3 tefachim, and then also maybe from here until the other wall also make a source of Pesach also. So that's also brought down as an opinion which we might pass on. Okay, did we finish that?
But what happens here, all you need on the third wall is just a tefach.
That's history. That's until the Gemara said that. What is it? Now he says you need 3 chanami tzuras. You need both. You need a tzuras of Pesach also. The Gemara first in the beginning didn't know about tzuras of Pesach. We're passing now tzuras of Pesach also. The Gemara says a story here. Vashi Ashki Chayla Rav Kana the Kavit Tefach eat some of Tos Sochik, some take it out. The Kavit tzuras of Pesach that he did both of these things. He had a perpendicular, let's say, and he made a tefach plus, which within 3 tefachim, and he also made a tzuras pesach till the end. Ravashi had the middle version, and he said, Rava says either one is good enough. What are you doing both of them for? Amalei, no, I had the other version. I all like the other version, but you have to have both, and that's what we pass. You have to have both. You have to have also a tefach sochek within 3 tefachim to get a 4 tefachim. And then also from there till the end, also make it source of Pesach.
That's halacha.
And that's not lachem. That's not lachem. New Gemara. He said he said by Sukkot there's a leniency that you don't have to have the whole 3 walls, the whole 2 walls. It's enough to have 2 walls and a tefach, as we just explained. And this is more lenient than Shabbos. By Shabbos, the introduction to this Gemara is that by Shabbos, in order to be considered a Rosh Hashanah, it has to be omed merubah alaparos. You have to have more wall than breach. Altogether in the whole enclosure that you're going to enclose as a Rosh Hashanah, it has to be more. You can't have so many breaches. You can't have whole doors the whole place. A Tzuras Pesach is different. A Tzuras Pesach also looks like it's open, but it's not. It's a bunch of doorways. But if you have without a doorway, just breaches in the wall. So the halach is you have to have omed merubah alaparos. Omed means standing wall. Paros means breaches, openings, not a doorway, not with the lintel on top, just a breach. So you have to have omed merubah alaparos. And if not, then it's not going to be a Rosh Hashanah. How many walls do you have to have? We possibly have to have 3 walls in order to be Rosh Hashanah. And in those walls, you're allowed to make doorways, but it has to be that the total of all the 4 walls has to be more wall than space. But by Sukkah, we said that 2 in the tefach is good, and it comes out that most of it is open. So there's a leniency you have by Sukkah that you don't have by Shabbos. And now the Gemara is going to say a chiddush. Amar Rava, or some say Rabbah. The Shabbos. On Shabbos of Sukkot, even though on a regular Shabbos you have to have omed merubah alaparos, if not, it's not a good Rosh Hashanah. On Shabbos of Sukkot, in the Sukkah, if it's a kosher Sukkah and it's considered a mechitza l'gabi Sukkah, so it's considered a Rosh Hashanah. If it's a kosher Sukkah, it's also a Rosh Hashanah. And that's called migu. Migu means mitoch, since. You can't say at the same, as if to say, you can't say at the same time that for Sukkah is considered a wall, and Shabbos is not considered a wall. If it's a good Sukkah, if it's a good wall for Sukkah, if it's not coming together, Stam Hilchas Sukkah. So we can say the laws of the mechitzas of Sukkah are different than the laws of the mechitzas of Shabbos. For Shabbos, you have to have certain conditions and criteria, and for Sukkah, it's different. But when it comes together, Shabbos of Sukkah, then the Gabi Shabbos, so it's going to be a Rosh Hashanah. Migu David Dochel in Sukkah, and Dochel in Shabbos. Since for Sukkah, it's considered a good wall, so for Shabbos also, it's considered a good wall. That's Rabba's statement. Abaya is a kasha that from a brayso that says you don't say migu, and each one is its own halachas, and you can't say just because for this it's going to be considered a wall, so too for the other one. Migu, you say the svar of migu mitoch. But Tanya brings a Bryce that the Chorah says the opposite. It says Dofen Sukkah Dofen Shabbos. First, it tells you in general the laws of the walls of Sukkah are similar to the laws of the walls of Shabbos. They do have the same halachas. And this is a regular law that doesn't. It's not a difference between Shabbos and Sukkah. Both of them. This is going. Rashi says on the din of lavud. Lavud means if you have sticks, either vertical sticks or horizontal ropes, and you want to make mechitza with lavud, so that's good. We have that Gemara in Eruvin. You could have like a picket fence. You could have that's okay, as long even if they're far away from each other, as long as it's within 3 tefachim. Or you could have horizontal bars. People have that kind of sukkah also. You see in the prefabricated sukkahs, they make special that even if you don't want to rely on the fabric, they make 3 or 4 horizontal sticks that could be considered lavud, and that's good both by Shabbos and by sukkah, as long as you don't have 3 tefachim between the sticks.
Do you want, excuse me, do you want to see any pictures or?
I appreciate it. Please do. Let me just put this on over here. Yes.
Did it come on?
Yeah, very good. Okay, here's a sukkah that's made out of sticks. And that's good. Sticks. As long as they're within 3 tefachim, less than 3 tefachim, that's okay. Very good.
Oh, because each one's lavud.
Yeah. You have even a doorway. You have a doorway. You can make one which is bigger because you not have a doorway, but everything else is considered all closed in. Beautiful.
Right, and this is going to be the other. This will be this one coming up.
You have horizontal sticks also.
Could you make it a little bigger, Lev Yaakov?
I guess so. Let's see.
Thank you very much.
Does that help?
That makes it smaller. Okay, fine, whatever. It's better. Yeah, it's better. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. And we get back.
Also, why-
Either way, it's good. Okay. Where are we? Oh, so here the Brisa says that sukkah and Shabbos are okay, as long as you don't have 3 tefachim, because then it wouldn't be lovely. But then the Brisa, this is what Bai wants. You say Shabbos al sukkah. Shabbos is more severe, more chamor than sukkah is. Why? By Shabbos you have to have that. You have more wall than opening. And sukkah doesn't have to have that because you can have 2 and a tefach. Doesn't it say beferish that Shabbos is more common than sukkah? According to you, when the Shabbos comes out on sukkah, it's good for everything. If it's good for sukkah, it's good for Shabbos. My love, you say Shabbos to sukkah, doesn't that mean to say that even when it comes out Shabbos of sukkah, Shabbos to sukkah, when it comes out Shabbos on sukkah, also, as far as Hilchos Shabbos go, it's not considered Rishus Yachid. As far as sukkah goes, it is considered enclosed. Rashi gives an example, not an example, but that's if you have a sukkah right out your door of your house, and it's in a Rishus Harabim. So as far as Hilchos Sukkah, it's a good sukkah, but you can't carry in from your sukkah to your house because it's not, as far as Hilchos Shabbos goes, it's not considered enclosed. So you wouldn't be able to carry in. It's not considered Rishus Yachid to Rishus Yachid because the sukkah is considered a Rishus Harabim. So doesn't it say that? Doesn't it say that sukkah, that Shabbos is more common than sukkah? It means you don't say migu. So if you don't mean migu, no, doesn't it say that? So the Gemara says no. I guess you have to make it a little smaller. That's his kasha. We're gonna get there. He's gonna answer. He's gonna say it doesn't mean that. But so far, 1 second.
This is a bias for, right?
A bias asking kasha. He's not asking his question. Does the Bryce say that? Doesn't the Bryce say that it's not that you don't say migu? First wide line, low. You say with Shabbos down, Shabbos is sukkah. It's not talking about when it says Shabbos. It doesn't mean Shabbos of sukkah. It means a regular Shabbos. A regular Shabbos. A regular Shabbos that's not sukkah. Middle of the year in Chodesh Av. So a Shabbos, they're going to make Rishus Yachid. It has to be only with all the Koretz. But on Sukkot, the Sukkah is kosher, and even Shabbos, the Sukkah is also. He's not coming to say Shabbos is more than Sukkah. And what's the mean Shabbos of Sukkah that also is more chomer? No, Shabbos of Sukkah is like Sukkah. He's saying that the Brisa doesn't say against me. The Brisa is saying that Shabbos alone, Shabbos, Hilchos Shabbos Kishel Atzmo, independently, Shabbos is going to be more chomer than Sukkah. But when it comes together, when it comes Shabbos of Sukkah, then we'll say Amigu. If it's good for Sukkah, it's good for Shabbos also. Yachi, if you say Amigu, listening Nami Yisera Sukkah the Alma Sukkah the Shabbos. The more one say the other way also. If you say Migu, what we do so far? We said Migu. We said that if it's good for Sukkah, it's good for Shabbos. We say the other way also. If it's good for Shabbos, it's good for Sukkah. And we're now the Gemara is going to point out a case that sometimes there are leniencies of Shabbos also. So far we said a leniency of Sukkah that it can be for Tzruba Lomed. Now we're going to say that sometimes there's going to be a leniency of Shabbos that Sukkah doesn't have, and it comes out Shabbos of Sukkah, are you also going to say that since it's a good mechitza for Shabbos, it's a good mechitza for Sukkah also? You should say so, and the Rashi should have said so. You should say Sukkah d'Alma, Sukkah the Shabbos. You should say that Sukkah of a weekday or Yontif when it's not Shabbos. You should say that that's more chomer than Sukkah the Shabbos. When it comes out Sukkah on Shabbos, and then the Sukkah also has leniencies of Shabbos. Whatever's going to be considered a good mechitza for Hilchas.
It's on top. It's not cold.
Okay. The more it's asking that if you have Sukkah in a weekday, it would be more lenient than Sukkah of Shabbos. The Ilu Sukkah the Alma boy tefach sochek. The Ilu Sukkah the Shabbos la boy tefach sochek. The more is going to say a scenario now that a lechi. This is the case. We know by Shabbos that lechi is good. We'll see a little bit more. But we know from Erevin that if you have a mobile, an alleyway that has 3 walls, and the front opening opens up to the Rosh Hashanah, so you only have 3 walls. So even though with the rice is the Rosh Hashanah, you have to have some tikkun in the front wall, which is called a lechi or a korah. We're talking about lechi over here. So if you say that the lechi is considered a mechitza as far as Hilchos Shabbos goes, so you should also be able to transfer that amigu. And when it comes out Sukkot and Shabbos, you should be able to utilize the lechi, which is a mechitza for Shabbos, for Sukkot also. That's the most kasha. And the Rashi should have said so. It should have said that Sukkot that doesn't come out on Shabbos is more chomer than Sukkot comes out on Shabbos, because when Sukkot comes out on Shabbos, you're allowed to use a lechi in place of a mechitza. Since a lechi is a good mechitza for Hilchos Shabbos, it should also be considered a good mechitza for Hilchos Sukkah if you hold the lechi. You say that if you put schach on top of a mobi which has a lechi, the pashas, I'll say Rashi now. Rashi is a big kashas on Rashi, or we pass like Rashi Mikra did, even though it's very tamur. It seems to say that if you have a mobi, which means Rashi says mobi foolish. Rashi says mobi foolish. Tosfos might argue, but Rashi and some Rishonim argue. Bishop will be on the other sheet also. Rashi says mobi foolish. 2 walls. You have a mobi which has a throughway. You only have 2 walls. And if you have a lechi on one side of the opening into Rosh Hashanah, Rashi says that it will be considered Rosh Hashanah Daraisa. That seems not to fit what we learned in Masechus Eruvin, but here Rashi seems to say if you have 2 walls and a lechi, the Daraisa is considered Rosh Hashanah. And therefore the Gemara is asking that so too, that lechi should also be kosher for Sukkot. So even though we didn't have such a thing so far. You have 2 walls and a lechi mashu. Nobody said that's good enough. You have to have at least 2 walls and a mash and a tefach. We said, what does tefach mean? Does that tefach or tefach sochek within 3 tefachim? Whatever we said, but 2 walls and a mashu and a lechi is not going to be good enough. And by Shabbos, it should be good. So we're going to learn the Gemara like Rashi. It makes it simple, but the question is if it fits with Eruvin. But as far as Rashi says over here, if you have on Shabbos 2 parallel walls of the mobi of the alleyway, you put a lechi by one of the opening services of Rabbi, but the rice is good enough, but the bottom is not. But the rice is good enough. And that kasha is, if so then it should be good enough of a mechitza by Sukkot also. If you put schach over that mobi, so you have 2 walls and a lechi mashu by the entrance, it should be considered a good sukkah. So
Can I show a picture on that?
Yes, I appreciate it. I really wanted to get a picture, but I
Lechi is a little.
a mashu stick.
Little,
Yeah, 10 tefachim height, no width. Here you have a
This is the mavoi.
It's the full They only have 2 walls. They only have one wall, 2 walls. And there's a lechi. If you see on the side over there, there's a little lechi over there, lechi mashu, which is pellet, because an American says not like that. But Rashi says that it would be Rosh Hashanah with the Raisa. And here he puts chach on top, so he has a good sukkah. He has a sukkah because he has
the kula of Shabbos to use it on
right, but
Sukkot.
only on Shabbos. And there's weekday of sukkahs, he wouldn't be able to. But on sukkahs of Shabbos, he'd be a kosher sukkah because you say migu. Since it's good for Shabbos, it's good for sukkah. That's what Abai is asking. Why doesn't it say that? And the Gemara is going to answer. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate these pictures. I would have wanted to get something. Because migu, because it means halachas of different. When it comes together, then you can't divide, because if it's good for one, it's good for other. You can't say the same time that it's a mechitza and it's not mechitza. That's his. Okay. So the Gemara answers, you're right. What was the kasha? If you say migu one way, say why doesn't it say migu the other way? And the Gemara is going to answer that it wants to. It doesn't have to say it because it's a kal v'chomer. If you say amigu that if it's good for sukkah, it's good for Shabbos, then kal v'chomer. If it's good for Shabbos, it's good for sukkah. And he's not. Baba is not bothered by the kasha. Yes, it is true. It is good. You do say amigu both ways. Before we spoke about if it's Paras Mubal Omed, Shtaim Kilchastan, and Shlish Afilu Tefach. Since it's good for sukkah, it's going to be considered Rishus Yachid for Shabbos. And I was saying the other way that if it's good for Shabbos, in case of the Lechi, so it's also good for sukkah also. And the more answers, one line up from the bottom, it doesn't have to say it. It's Pashit. From a cooler, from a lenient thing to a severe thing, to a stringent. Sukkah is considered more lenient than Shabbos.
Right.
Shabbos is Hilchah Shabbos, Chayiv Karis, Chayiv Skila, and Sukkah is a mitzvah to say. If it's good for Sukkah, he said that it's a good Sukkah, it's a good mechitza for Shabbos also. So Mechamita Lekilta Lekolchein, so Kavachomer, if it's good for Shabbos, it's surely good for Sukkahs. And that's what he said. That's the halacha. That's what we paskin. You say we hold this way that on Shabbos of Sukkah, whatever is good for Sukkah is good for Shabbos. Whatever is good for Shabbos is good for Sukkah. The only
Correct.
kasha is, yes, please.
You do know that the Ran is on the side of Rashi against all the people against them, but the Ran is with Rashi.
Okay, Yashikar. Gufa, Amar Rava. Sicher.
Finish? No.
Oh, on the bottom words, and we continuing. I wanted to highlight this, but they didn't let me, so I just underlined it. That's what we just did. We did that a second ago, and we said that if on Shabbos, it means on Shabbos. It doesn't mean on the weekday. It means Shabbos of Sukkot. If you have schach on top of the mud, which has a lechi, since it's a good, it's a Rishus Yachid, it's also a kosher sukkah. Ve'amar Rava, another din Rava said, Rava, another halacha, sicha hagabi pasibiros. So pasibiros, if you have any, if there's a better picture of Leib Yaakov, I also would appreciate it. But
Yes, I do have. I have.
This is the old picture. It's pretty good. They made a nice one. That if you have a bore, a well in the Rishus Rabbim, and the well is a Rishus Yachid because it's 10 tefachim deep, 4x4, and outside is a Rishus Rabbim. You wouldn't be allowed to carry. You want to take out water from the well in order to give to your animal. You're not allowed to because you take it from Rishus Yachid to Rishus Rabbim. So it says over there in Erevin, you're allowed to have the leniency of making double.
You.
What is the word?
Dio.
Diu amudin, and that's called an amma each way, an amma by an amma, even though you have a lot of space in between. You have 10 ammas, even though holds, you can have even more than 10 ammas, and then it'll be kosher because you have the outline. And that's not good by sukkah. By sukkah, if you make the 4 outlines, there's no such thing. No, it's not good enough sukkah. But now the Gemara is going to say again, you say migu, that if you have over here the mechitzas of Shabbos, the 4 outlines, and you have a bor, pasi birois, everything's Rishus Yachid Midaraisa, so then it's good for sukkahs also. And now we'll see the live application.
It's not that much different.
Okay, but it's nice. You have the bore, and
Here's
it's
the
on a highway. Like here, you have a Rishus Rabbim all around, and you wouldn't be able to take water from the bore. So the Rabbanan permitted to rely on the deraisa. If you look closely, it's hard to see, but those are all yumdin. It's not just pool. It's a two-sided, like the other picture, like the other picture showed. If you look closely, you can see that. And you have those 4 outlines. That's good for Shabbos. And since you put schach on it, it's also good for Sukkot. Only on Shabbos. And the weekday is not going to be a kosher sukkah. But on Shabbos, since it's considered Rishus Yachid for Shabbos, migu, that it's a mechitza for Shabbos, is also a mechitza for sukkah. Only on Shabbos. Yashikar. I didn't have this when we were young, huh?
Life gets more interesting.
Okay. The 3 migus. It said the case that if it's good for Sukkah, it's good for Shabbos. When you had Paras Mubal Omed, and it said if it's good for Shabbos, in the case of the Lechi, that's the top line. If it's good for Sukkah also. And the third case, if it's good for Pasi Birois for Shabbos, it's also good for Sukkah. And the Gemara wants to know why did Rabbah or Rava have to say the same thing 3 times? It's the same yisod, same principle. There's 3 applications that you say migu. Why do you have to have all that? With Shvicha, you have to have all of these. You have to say all 3 things. Even though you say migu, maybe only it's limited. In the case of the 2 parallel walls with the lechi, that's a 2 parallel walls. At least the 2 walls. It's true you don't have more than 2 walls, but the 2 walls are good 2 walls. So maybe over there it'll say the migu that it's good for sukkah. For Shabbos, it's good for sukkah also because at least you have 2 good walls. In the case of the pasi birois, you only have the 4 corner pieces, so you don't see any. You don't have 2 good walls. You only have the.
What is the meaning of the pasi birois?
Birois means a bor. Borod, a bear, the plural of bear, and pasa is a board. The boards of the beirot.
And they're not really, but they're not really boards. They're just corners.
The board's in the middle.
Oh, the boards.
Yeah, they're only permitted over there in order to take out water. They don't permit it by Shabbos either. But they're abundant at least. They don't allow you to use the pasi biros heter only when there's a bear. So again, here the Gemara says if only to tell you the migu by the case of the two walls with the lechi, you might say because at least you have two walls. But by the pasi biros, you don't have two walls. Maybe it's not good. You're not going to say the migu. The second case, the pasi biros has a mind also. The fact that it has a frame, at least it has the outline of all four sides. It's true you don't have even one good wall, but at least you have the outline of all four walls. By Shank, in the case of the mobile, you only have two walls. You have two nice walls, but you don't see any hint of the closing in of the other two walls. So maybe that's worse. So you have to say both cases is good. Since both of them are good by Shabbos, we say both of them are good by Sukkah, on Shabbos of Sukkah. And and these two cases is saying that if it's good for Shabbos, it's good for Sukkah. That's the small chiddush. The chiddush is even the other way. If it's good for Sukkah, it's good for Shabbos. That's why he said the first case, that when you have even though it's first move you have more breach than you wall, it's also good for Sukkah also. Again, all these cases only on Shabbos of Sukkah. Not on, we don't say the Migu Stam, since it's find it over there also. On Shabbos has this halachas, Sukkah has this halachas, but when it comes together, Shabbos of Sukkah, whatever's good for Shabbos to be Rishus Yachad makes it into a Sukkah also. Whatever's good for Sukkahs, make it into Sukkah, makes it also Rishus Yachad for Shabbos. New Gemara, so this was the last halacha of the Mishnah, that if the sun is more than the shade, so it's possible. You have to have, we'll see later on if it's equal, you have to have shade more than sun, you can't have sun more than shade. How about if the sun comes through the walls? So we know that we only care about the sun coming through the schach. Not so simple. That's why that's the Tanakama, that's how you paskin, but it wasn't so simple. Tanakama says we don't care about the sun coming into the walls. And Taisus points out that when you have love with the case that Lev Yaakov showed us, the whole thing is full of sticks. It's full of sun. You have a lot of sun. All the walls are open. You just have some sticks. But Yosha holds that's not good. But Yosha Omer we're concerned about the sun that comes in through the walls also. So according to him, you have to have a lot of good walls. It's not going to allow all of these doorways that are going to make, and lovewood that's going to make a lot of sun. So that will change a lot of lachas that we learned already. But that's how he holds, that you have to have that the sukkah should not be sunny. After everything's over, you should sit in the shady sukkah. Nowadays, you can sit in the very sunny sukkah because the walls are all open. But
wait a minute, so the wood inside the
he
sukkah doesn't work.
He also Tyson says in Amanah that the load wouldn't work according to him. You have to have that. It shouldn't be sun.
And that's going to pass now?
No, we pass that load is good. We pass that you could have the sun. We only care about the sun coming in from the spot. The rest of him was going to talk about why windows also. Yeah, all these things. He would say, make sure you don't have after everything's over. It should be right. You would have to have that. It should be lemaisa. It should be shady. We don't pass like that. We hope you can have a sunny sukkah. Maybe it's nice to have shady sukkah, of course. Air conditioning, everything. But it could, okay. But he also have to have shade. A what? A board? Yeah, sure. Yeah, why not?
You see through it.
I try to go through it. Can't go through it. My time with the Rabbi Yoshia. From where does Rabbi Yoshia get that the walls also should give shade? Nothing to do with sukkahs. The pasuk is talking about the parochas. The parochas is the curtain between the kodesh kodashim, not the kaporas. The parochas. Parochas is the curtain, and the pasuk says v'sakosa. V'sakosa uses the word schach.
Oh my God.
And the pasuk uses the word schach. Parochas. I'm sorry, I missed the word. Parochas machitza. The parochas is a partition. It's not a roof. The pasuk calls it schach. So you see that the wall also has to be like schach. And in one aspect, not in all aspects, he also agrees. Taisa says it doesn't have to be kosher schach, but it has to have one aspect that it should give shade. So that's the source of Rab Yoshia. Alma mechitza kischach binan. So you see that the mechitza also has to be like schach that it should give shade. We don't pass like Rab Yoshia. We hold that the halacha only has to be shade from the schach, even if the walls are gives in sun. It's not a problem. Rabbanan, what Rabbanan do with this pasuk? It says parochas curtain, and it says schach. Sorry, just a second. Rabbanan, ahu deneke porta, the Mexican schach. Rabbanan say the pasuk over there that says by the parochas, don't take it to mean that the curtain, that the partition also has to have similarity to the roof. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that the parochas should also be a bit horizontal. It means even though the parochas is a vertical curtain, on the top it should bend a little bit. The stakosa that the parochas should be a bit sheltering over the aron. It shouldn't just be a straight vertical curtain. And this is by the Kodesh and Kodesh HaKadoshim, the curtain that's separating the Kodesh and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, which is a curtain in the Mishkan, but it should be also a bit bent on top, that it should be also sheltering as a roof. A little bit, doesn't say how much. It should be a little bit of a schach. But they hold, don't from this pasuk that a partition is also called a roof. A partition is a partition, a roof is a roof, and therefore the walls don't have to have protection from the sun. And that's why paskin. One more Gemara that goes till the end. Abaye said the following 8 Tanoim all have something in common. Rabbi Yoshia, Rabbi Yehuda. I didn't mean to leave out Rabbi, just they didn't allow me to highlight that. And Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Gamliel, Beishamai, Rabbi Elazar, Achim. That's 8, all Tanoim. All of them have in common that they held some kind of a kriyas by a sukkah. We spoke in the beginning of the Masechta Diras Arai that it should be more of a temporary dwelling, but they hold that there's also an aspect of an established, fixed dwelling. Now, Taisha says they're not going to all agree with each other, and some of them mamish argue with each other, but each one has some aspect of kriyas. We're going to pass on only like 2 out of these 8. We hold in general Diras Arai. We hold in general that it has to be a temporary dwelling. It could be a temporary dwelling. It's even supposed to be a temporary dwelling. Yeah, two of them we're going to pass on like, but
each one has a different way of doing it.
yeah, a different aspect of kriyas. But they all have some aspect of kriyas. And they didn't even talk about the aspect of kriyas. They just said they're halachas. But the Gemara is saying each one has some aspect of being fixed and established and permanent. And those who argue on them don't hold you don't have to have that. Rebbe, what do you see Rebbe? Let's go through the whole list. The Tani, Rebbe, Omer, Kol Sukkah, Shen, Bar, Amos, Alav, Amos, Psula. We had this before. How big are the dimensions of a sukkah? So we said 7 tvachim by 7 tvachim. Some even hold 6 tvachim by 6 tvachim. Enough for Rosh Hashanah. Some say Rosh Hashanah v'Shulchano. But Rebbe says it has to be like a regular room. Daled Amos, but Daled Amos. A regular room sound like a house. So he holds that's a kviyus. It doesn't say that's the reason why he says so, but he says that it has to be something which is 4 by 4. That's considered more kavua. Rabbi Yoshia also holds kviyus. That's argument that he says that the walls have to give shade. That means that he should be in a shady room, not just a temporary thing that's full of sun. That's also an aspect of kviyus. Rabbi Yehuda, the Tanan Sukkah Shigavol Mala Mesrimam Mapsula. Rabbi Yehuda Masha. That's the first Mishnah we had. That the Tanakhama says that if the schach is higher than 20 yamas is possible, and Rabbi Yehuda says it's kosher, even though it's so high, it's going to be kavua. And even Rav over there said that the whole reason why it's possible is because maybe it's kavua. But even according to Adam or Ram Lamais, Rabbi Yehuda says higher than 20 is kosher, even though it's kavua. So you see that it's not a problem at least. He doesn't say dafkin has to be kavua, but it's not a problem if it is kavua. Rabbi Shimon the Tanya, basically shtayim tolchasan u'shlish afilu tefach. Rabbi Shimon Omer shlosh tolchasan u'shlish afilu tefach. That was yesterday's Gemara. That we said 2 and a tefach is good, but Rabbi Shimon says 3 and a tefach. So that means if you have to have almost 4 walls, and Rashi brings out that the Gemara at the end yesterday said that one of the reasons might be psukim because sukkahs, but the Gemara also said because it should be machsa mizerma mimota, that it should be a shelter from rain. So that's an aspect of kviyas also, that it should be a something that gives you shelter. That's more of a established than just some temporary shack. Rabbi Gamliel also holds that you have to have some kind of a kviyas. The Tanya also says because of Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Hashanah, Rabbi Gamliel posted Rabbi Kiva Mashiach. If you make a sukkah on top of a wagon or on top like a car nowadays, or on top of a boat, so Rabbi Gamliel says it's possible because it's too temporary, it's too portable. Rashi says about the boat, it could be because the wind is going to blow the sukkah off, so it's not permanent enough, or by the wagon, the fact that the wagon, even if it's not no winds, but just that it's movable, it's portable, also is a reason why it might be puzzled, because it's not kavua. Rabbi Kiva Machshir. Rabbi Kiva holds discussion. We'll have the sugya later on to see what we paskin. But Rabbi Gamliel at least holds some aspect of kviyas that it has to be not on a boat, not on a ship, not on a wagon. Shammai also aspect of kviyas, not Bishay Rosh Hashanah v'Sukkah v'Shulchan b'Sukkah Habayis v'Shamai Posel v'Sel Machshirin. We had this Gemara before. We had 2 points that the Mishnah says both. The Mishnah means both. The Gemara said if somebody even is in a big sukkah, but his table is in the house and he might lean over, so it's possible because he has to have his table in the sukkah and make sure that he's there. And also the size of the sukkah has to be big enough to get his table inside. 7 by 7 tvachim is not good enough. Just 6 by 6 tvachim to get his body, and he has to get also his table. That's also an aspect of kviyas. What? Beshama, and that's how we paskin. We said already that we pass like Beshama. The sukkah has to be 7 by 7. It Tosfos points out that here Beshama is the one. Beshama and Rebbe are both on the list of the 8, and they're arguing with each other. One says the sukkah is going to be Daled Amos with Daled Amos. Beishamai says 7 Tvachim by 7 Tvachim, and they're both on the list of Kviyos. Means they don't have to agree with each other, but each one is an aspect of Kviyos. He says you have to have your table in. You have to have mamash be comfortable to be like your house. But both of them say an aspect of Kviyos. Rabbi Lezer, the next one, that also holds of Kviyos, the Tanan Osus Akosa Kamin Srif, Osus Samcha Lakosa, Rabbi Lezer Posel, Fichaim Lagag, if somebody made his sukkah like a tzrif, a tzrif would be like a tipi, that everything is diagonal, a slanting, everything's on a slant, or even if it's not on all 4 sides, a slant. Some kolakosa, you put schach against the wall. You have bamboo sticks and you set them up slanting against the wall. You go inside, so you have the wall and the schach is one and the same. The fact that you have a slanting, but like a tipi, the walls and the roof is all one and the same. So it says according to Rabbi Lezer, it's puzzle because it doesn't have a roof. A normal house has walls and a roof. Here you have the walls and the roof all in one. It's not good enough. Some say that it's kosher. So again, according to Rabbi Lezer, it's not kavu enough. It's too much temporary that he does have some kind of a slanty wall roof. It's all the same, 2 in 1. You have to have a good roof. So that's also an aspect of kviyos. And the last one, Acherim, the Tanya, Acherim also usually Meir that say that also you have to have a kviyos. The Tanya, Acherim Omrim, Sukkah, Asuya, Keshoba, Psula, Lefishaim, Zavios. If you have a round sukkah, there's a picture, a round sukkah, this can be next to tomorrow's Gemara also. If you have a round sukkah, it's possible because it doesn't have corners. And a normal house, you don't have round rooms, you have square. I guess if people don't make their houses like that for some reason, why not? I'm not sure.
Very expensive.
That's it. So I don't know, but for whatever reason, people make their houses square. So I don't know what the reason is, but whatever it is, so if it made like in a circle, so it's in a round, it's not considered kavua. So out of all these, we don't paskin like most of them. We hold that Diras Arai, but we do paskin. Which ones do we paskin like? We paskin like Beishamai, that you have to have 8 by 8. You have to have your table inside. You have to have 8 by 8, 7 by 7, 7 by 7. There's enough room to have your table inside. And also like probably the thing about where's it coming? I think also Kimin Srif. Is that true? I think we're paskin also the one about Kimin Srif also might be puzzled. We'll get to that more. The Gemara changes the gear says over there Chachamim post them. So I think we're going to say that when it's Kimin Srif, it's like a tipi or it's like slanty wall. So also it's puzzle. So just to chaz over today's Gemaras, we had about a perpendicular. That's that we're stopping over here. The perpendicular sukkah. You have to have a tefach. The Gemara came out. A tefach means that you make tefach plus and you put it within 3 tvachim of the wall. So it's lowered. Plus you have a suras pesach also to continue it. And the next most spoke about a parallel sukkah, 2 walls. Again, also there they have to have a board which is 4 tvachim. Of course, all these things are 10 tvachim high, but the width should be 4 tvachim plus, and it should be within 3 tvachim to the wall, to one of the walls. So that'll be 7 tvachim, and then also a source of pesach from there till the other parallel wall. The next one I spoke about that Yasei Migu, that Shabbos has its halachas, Sukkot has its halachas, but when it comes on Shabbos of Sukkah, so whatever's good for Shabbos to make it a Rosh Hashanah is good to be a kosher Sukkah also. Whatever's good for Sukkah to make it a good sukkah is going to also make it into Rosh Hashanah for Shabbos. And the next Gemara was Rabbi Yoshia that holds that the walls also have to protect from the sun, and if it doesn't, and it's a sunny sukkah, it's possible we pass like Rabbanan that we don't care about the walls as long as the sun doesn't come through the schach. And the last Gemara said a list of 8 Tanum that hold some kind of a kviyas. They don't hold of each other either, but they all have some kind of an aspect of a kviyas. And we don't pass them like all of them, except for 2. I'm pretty sure, well, one is for Shal Beishamai, that the sukkah has to be 7 by 7 to get your table inside, and the table should be inside. And Rabbi Lezer or the Chachamim that hold that if it's a slanty roof, also it's possible.
Where do we end?
We ended by Amr Rabbi Yochanan, about 3, 6, 8 lines from the bottom.
Rebbe,
Yes, go ahead.
the Indian that we brought up with Rashi is a big tumult about whether in such a migu sukkah you'd have a heter tiltal on Shabbos. And it seems that the Ran has a whole lumdus that migu works for Indian Dioraisa, and that seems to be what Rashi's saying here. So Rashi and the Ran are on that side, and there are a whole bunch of Rishonim on the other side. But
The kasha is that by Shabbos, it's starting off that by Shabbos is good, and therefore it's good by Sukkah also. The kasha is that by Shabbos, as far as we know, it's not good. The Gemara says, Perish in Maseches Eruvin, that when you have a lechi, it doesn't make it, 2 walls on a lechi don't make it into Rosh Hashanah deraisa. it talks about Rebbe Yehuda. Rebbe Yehuda over there says if you have two houses on two sides of the road and you have lechis on two sides, that is Rishus Yachad Deraisa. And the Gemara says we don't like that. We hold that it's not a Rishus Yachad Deraisa. Even with the Raisa, it's not a Rishus Yachad. So Rashi is against that Gemara. So that's the big problem. How could it say that as a migu? It doesn't help even for Shabbos. It's not good.
So with the Ran, with the Ram's Lumdis, what I understand, if I got it right here, and there is some arichas in Rav Michal, I haven't been to all of it, but it seems to be that is it poil heter tiltal on Shabbos of Sukkot?
No, it has to go the other way. The question is first, you have to tell me that it's good on Shabbos. First, tell me that it's good on Shabbos, that it makes a Rishus Shabbos. Then we can talk about Sukkot. But if it's not good, we're talking about the case of the Lechi. Yeah, we talk about the same thing. We're talking about the case of the Lechi. The case of the Lechi is supposed to be good to Shabbos, and Migu is good to Shabbos, is good to Sukkah. But the problem is, it's not good to Shabbos. So what you're saying that are you allowed to carry there on Shabbos of Sukkot? Are you allowed to carry there on Shabbos? The question is that it's not mutter to carry there on Shabbos. I mean, there's a missing link over here. You're going already past the missing link. You're going that it's good for Shabbos, and then for Sukkot it's also good, and now we're going to go back that it's good for Shabbos with Rabbanan. You're going that if it is good with the Raisa, and here's going to be good for Sukkot, then it's going to be good with the Rabbanan also on Shabbos.
I have the
Raisa on Shabbos.
I just spotted during your share the arichos in Rav Michal in the Ran, so I have to study it. But
Okay.
that
Much
the way-
appreciated.
the way it's presented is a migu functional dioraisa or only dirabanan? That's the way he presents it.
But the thing, something's missing before that. It
Okay.
shouldn't be good. That's the part that's missing.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
Thank you
Right.
very much. And thank you, Rabbi Yaakov, for the pictures today. Helped very much.
Thank you.